Hello, fellow blasphemers. Uh, I've been thinking about the preacher and his analogy of the judge and how he's like the clerk of court and how uh, and um, I figured that it would be a fun exercise to try to rip that apart limb from limb. So that's what I'm gonna try to do. Apologies for the last video. I didn't mean to go all melodramatic. It's I had a particularly hard weekend and needed to vent a bit. Okay. So, let's see. According to you, preacher, if you're watching, God is like the judge who is passing sentence on everybody, and he has certain laws that he's enforcing, and that makes you are like the clerk of court who reads the verdict at the end. And we shouldn't be mad at you because for just preaching the verdict. We should be thankful for some reason. Okay. Here's the only way you can make your little scenario work. Let's say, for the sake of argument, that God is like the judge. For your analogy to be in any way applicable, the judge would have to be somebody who no one has ever seen, who no one has ever actually heard from, and who communicates only through his clerks, who never see him, by means of a book that he wrote. And I guess since it's a judge, we'll say rather than 2,000 years ago, let's just go ahead back and say it was he wrote the book 60 years ago. And that book is the only way that anybody actually knows that the judge is there. Alright, so that's how the judge works. Now let's look at the clerk. You are supposed to be reading the verdict if you're the clerk. Now, I don't think you're going to go into any courtroom and you're going to find a clerk. When he reads the verdict, he reads it. We find the defendant guilty, guilty, guilty! He is going to burn in the electric chair. He's going to scream in agony as he can feel his own blood boil in his veins while the electricity passes through him. It doesn't work that way. All the clerk does is reads, but the jury hands them. But there is no jury. Because in this case, God is the judge, the jury, and the executioner. So really, it's not even fitting in that way. But let's go a step further. This judge can pass down a death sentence, actually worse than a death sentence. He can hand down a sentence that somebody is to be tormented for the remainder of their life because he can't. Let's take it back a step from eternity, which is even more horrifying. Let's say that this particular judge has the authority to have people tortured for the remainder of their life and then killed horribly. Okay. Now, you might ask yourself, okay, well, what kind of a crime would you have to commit for a judge to hand down this kind of a verdict? And the crime is the judge has a son. And if you don't love the judge's son and surrender your life to the judge's son and do whatever the judge's son says, which also comes from that 60-year-old book the judge wrote, that is grounds for your being tortured and brutally killed. Now, you totally misunderstood my question. I was asking you, if people have never heard the name Jesus, logically, they cannot consciously reject Jesus if they don't even know about him. You can't fault that. That's simple fact. So, why would you want to go and interfere with people who have never heard the name of Jesus if they cannot possibly consciously reject him? They can't go to hell if they don't consciously reject Jesus. So why are you going and telling people about Jesus and thus giving them the option to either accept this new thing, this new person, or fall back on however many hundreds or thousands of years of tribal traditions, or whatever the case may be? Why not just let them live their Jesus-free lives where they cannot possibly go to hell, as you believe they will, for rejecting Jesus? Just leave them alone. It's so simple. If they don't hear Jesus' name, they can't reject him. So don't even let them hear it. So anyway, that is the crime that these people can be tortured and killed for, is just not loving and surrendering their lives to this judge's son. Now, if you can find me a judge anywhere who communicates through a book, which is interpreted several different ways, mind you, who nobody ever sees, who has clerks who go around the world screaming at people, telling them that if they don't love this judge's son, who they've never seen, that they are going to be tortured and killed because that's this judge's arbitrary law. And let's add another layer onto this one. Let's suppose there are people who believe there are other judges that have written other books and who have different laws and different punishments, and now you have to decide which is the right judge. And no one judge has any more compelling evidence about their existence than any other judge. So, if you take all those things into account, fine, your analogy works. But since that's not how any judge on this planet operates, I'm sorry. You're still stupid!